I'm here to introduce Mr. Yuval Devir, who is Executive Advisor at Velorum. Mr. Yuval is a global leader in cutting-edge technology and business strategy. Formerly in Sandbox AQ, Eric Smith's AI and quantum computing company, he led go-to-market strategy and the adoption of disruptive technologies. So we are delighted to welcome him in the CaixaBank Day One stand, and thank you for joining us. We look forward for your presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yeah, everything is okay. Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you, CaixaBank, for hosting us. The topic today is the end of the SaaS era as we know it due to AI, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, let's start where it all started. So last year, I was here in Mobile World Congress speaking on behalf of Google. That's when we did the first Gemini integration with OEM partner, that was Samsung. And that's where we also launched Notebook LM Plus. A lot of things have changed since then. It's been 1 year. Personally, I enjoyed Mobile World Congress so much that I decided to stay in Barcelona, although Castelldefels, but that's a different discussion. So let's understand what has changed and what remains the same. Here we go. So, what stayed the same? First of all is the AI continuum. What is everybody working on and what is everybody working towards? And the key thing is reaching the holy grail of artificial intelligence, which is artificial general intelligence and super intelligence. This is something beyond anything that we can ever sort of comprehend. But the key thing that really has changed is that the ability to get there, we don't really need to wait to get to AGI or super intelligence. We need to get to this thing. This is rapid recursive self-improvement. And there are some people that think we're going to reach that already this year. Anthropic or Claude, most of their codes is right now, by the end of this year, 99% of it is going to be written by agents. So if agents write the code, if agents debug the code, if agents know about the code, then the agents can improve the code and can create better versions and faster versions. And that's when we reach what they call the fast takeoff. And what happens after that is anyone's guess, because it's going to be out of human hands. We're going to be out of the loop. And there are some people that think we're going to reach that this year. Now, what has changed is we understand that now people talk about LLMs and AI interchangeably. But these are not the same. LLMs are based on letters and words, which are the tokens. But these are human construct. This is not how nature works. So there are other models. Intelligence is multimodal. You need multiple models that capture different parts. So Dr. Fei Li is focusing on large world models, physics-based, math-based. Sandbox is doing the same with large quantitative models that are better depict how nature works, both from a Newtonian physics and also subatomic perspective. And we're getting the age of discovery, as Ilya mentioned, but there's also others, Jan LeCun and others, that are going away from LLMs in order to bridge and break into new barriers from an intelligence perspective. Jeff Hinton, one of the godfathers, mentioned this, that we need to think of a different way to reach artificial general intelligence, and focusing just on LLM is not enough. So, to summarize, the two scales of thought, the two hypotheses are, on the one hand, what Google has been doing very much, more data centers, more compute, more chips. Let's scale our way to intelligence. And the other approach, we need a different architecture that would be able to break biology and other very much complicated areas. And I think we're somewhere in between because you need both. I mean, just recently there was an article, came from Nature, that talked about a very small piece of the human brain. It was so complex that we couldn't even understand it. It would take, from a digital perspective, all the data centers in the world just to host it. So this whole idea of some people saying, let's upload our brain to the cloud, that's not going to happen, not anytime soon. it's far too complex. Biology is far too complex that current digital systems cannot really master. What also hasn't changed is the race. We're being led by the magnificent 7. Those 7 stocks that race ahead to reach that AGI or recursive self-improvement first. And they're not stopping. There's no guardrails, even if they say they are. Now, some people would say, where's Anthropic over here? And the reason that you don't see them is because of the weird connection and the circular funding and connection between all those companies. The other thing that's happening is the geopolitical nature of this race. And right now, unfortunately, we're in Europe, but Europe is not even in the race from a frontier model perspective. It's the States versus China. And right now, the differences are not that significant. At some point, people believe that the models are going to be so much sophisticated that they're not going to be public anymore. Right now, whenever there's a new model, whether it's from Anthropic or others, they straight away take it out because it gives them competitive advantage in the market. But soon, they'll be so strong and so powerful that they're going to stop. The public would only have access to limited models, whereas the core, better models are going to stay within their proprietary knowledge and technology. And that thing is coming soon. So anybody who wants to work with AI needs to take advantage of the fact that they now have access to the same level of models that these frontier models have. Now we may ask, why is intelligence so critical? Because unlike any other sort of technological innovation, industrial revolution and all that, technology hits us at the core. It's core of what humans are. It's our value proposition. It's our differentiation. It's our secret sauce. It's where our emotions, our thoughts, our desires, everything is in our intelligence. And that's why people believe that once you gain intelligence, you reign supreme. So let's get back into the topic that we're here to discuss, and that is abstraction. It's a core technological topic, and that's key to what technology is. We want to make it easier for users to use technology. You don't need to know the underlying bits and bots to use it. It should work. Let's take the cloud example, and that's part of the tech abstraction. In the past, each company, whether in healthcare or pharmaceuticals or whatever, had to have all the servers and data centers and everything to power them. Then we have cloud. Cloud has taken a part of that. It started with virtual machines, and now it's pretty much taking over everything. But we still have our own core, SaaS in a way application. So, where does it go from here? So right now we have infrastructure as a service, platform, and software as a service. We saw before, the infrastructure and the platform are being slowly taken away by AI, which leaves us into software as a service, which has been a great model, and a lot of companies made a lot of money out of it. The margins are high, the marginal cost of adding additional user is nothing. But the future is AI is going to take over that. And let's see why and what would happen if that case. First, let's look at some SaaS platforms and their return over the past year. Look at this. Some of them have been completely gone, some of them over 70, 50% down. And these are major SaaS players. So a lot of the paradigms that we lived on, that SaaS reigns supreme, that the market is always going to go up, and even if we think about investing, just buy QQQ and other investment, that's not necessarily going to be the case. Things are changing. And it's something to think about. So a lot of people said that AI would be a bubble, but potentially AI is destroying the bubble, and that bubble is maybe SaaS. So it's a different way of thinking of what's happening in the market right now. The other thing that's happened is we're seeing entry-level extinction of jobs, and this is not just a comment. This is happening. I mean, just this week, Block, used to be Square, cut almost 50% of their staff. Not just entry level, but 50% of the staff gone in a week. But now let's look at how companies are being built. Because if we're changing the way the future works, if we're thinking differently about what it means to invest in SaaS, if the future is not going to be the same as the past, we also need to think about companies. Are they going to be the same as the past? today companies have three key areas: the executive function, where we do the strategy and so on, operational, and technical. That's the organizational stack of a typical company today, small and large. However, as we saw, the technical stack is being abstracted away by artificial intelligence. The operational stack is also being abstracted away by agents. They need to improve. There's some work to be done, but that's the direction that it's going. But I would argue that the executive function is going to go away. And if anything, it's basically the easiest thing to abstract away. The executive function is where the majority of the decisions are being made. And right now, they are being made by humans that have a lot of flaws. As you go up the ranks in many large organizations, the politics take a bigger part of your decision maker. The politics are not necessarily the key database decision making. So if we can have an egoless, emotionless, and tireless executive, what's wrong with that? And even Sergey mentioned that as well. He gave a few examples of how actually using AI as a key decision maker is helping. And there's also a company called Glean that creates database in the organization, and sometimes it's able to actually tell you who's not at fault, but where the problem sits. Not a balanced decision, not a balanced response, but a clear-cut, objective, truthful response, which is what we all want. So in a way, right now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of waste and friction. As a result of humans, dealing with humans is problematic. It's tricky. But if we can improve it, if we can optimize that, we can create almost like a truth teller. A truth teller that will ensure the right things get done, the right decisions are being taken, and we're not going to go into waste. So, how does the future tech stack looks like? And that's how we should think about when building companies. So the traditional tech stack, you have the different areas of development, software, communication, pricing, labor, and org structure. A lot of these need to be changed. And a lot of companies right now, even SaaS companies, are building a small replica of themselves, not a digital replica, but an AI replica of their own business model, start a little bit, and move more workloads towards that. Because companies that are not going to work according to an AI native stack are going to go extinct as the ones that we saw before. And that's where you have to leverage companies or ventures that help build that AI-first business. And there's different sort of ways that you can think about it, but it's a different mindset. The communication is different between humans and agents. So what else is happening? And there was recently a tweet by Andreessen Horowitz that mentioned the fact that that soul type of work is going to go away. So before you have a product person, an engineering person, and marketing person. And now as a result of AI, the product person thinks that they can do engineering and marketing as well. Same thing goes with the design and the marketing. So everything is mashing together. But they're not necessarily wrong, because if you break down all these functions, these are also human construct, artificial boundaries between activities that are pretty much the same. We all work with data, we all have a certain degree of tasks, and if we don't focus just on our lane and open our mind, then we see all these converging together. And this is not just in terms of the functions and role in organization. We see that also in how the world operates. So in the past, we had, if you think about just the natural sciences, so we had biology, chemistry, physics, and so on. But where do these come from? Who decided what is biology and who is chemistry? Is that nature? Or is that, again, a human construct? And it is a human construct. It's artificial boundaries that humans have created themselves because it's impossible for us to comprehend all of that in its entirety. Now with AI, we can actually break between them. And most innovation happens in the intersections. And that's the big opportunity, because AI can become the key to solving a lot of these problems in each one of those disciplines and as a whole. And that's really unlocking knowledge and accelerating discoveries and creating new sciences, things that we cannot even figure out today how they work. The energy, the chemistry between people. Let's find the science that explains that. Now, let's talk a little bit about AI adoption, and this is also where we come in as well. So there's the famous MIT report, and the person before me from CaixaBank mentioned that things are actually better right now. I would argue that there's still a lot of issues. So we recently had a meeting with Salesforce and other companies dealing with their agent force and others, and they're not really seeing the value of agents. And the main reason that they're not seeing the value is because agents need a proper infrastructure and data to be of value. And right now, most of the organizations are a complete mess. And if you provide a mess to an agentic, scaled algorithm, you're going to get a lot of mess out. So data readiness is key. The organizational culture we talked about, and that's where AI can come in. And obviously, there's valid risks and concerns that we need to solve. But let's really talk about the data, because that's the key. If you break down organizations today and companies today, that's basically what they are. There are different databases and tables that transforms from one form to another, takes certain actions, and all that. That's what an organization is today, a digital organization. But if we have poor data, and it doesn't need to be unstructured, even structured data can be poor, and you use a massive AI throughput, you don't get just garbage out, you get a massive wasteland. And that's where agents hit. They don't have the same judgment that humans have. They don't communicate how humans have. Where did you leave this file? Which folder? They don't work that way. They work according to a set of instructions. And if it's not clear, the data, they're not going to do anything about it. And that's where we come in. So companies like Valorum, as part of our Iris Venture Builder, are building an AI-first type companies. The different stack for a different future that's slowly changing. And as a result of that, the key point over here is data. Not just that the tables are going to be connected and set. We need to understand the context of it. The algorithm needs to understand the context of it and bring it all together. Now, there's another thing that's happening as a result of this. Because right now, a lot of us are using LLMs outside of the organization. We have API calls to OpenAI, ChatGPT, and others. But soon, we're going to have LLMs inside the organization for two main reasons. First of all, local installed LLMs could be just as good. I've seen LLMs on a mobile device without connection to the internet. They work perfectly for 90% of the use cases. And second, once you organize your data, and if we talked about organizations being pretty much a data repository across multiple areas, would you want to export that sensitive information to someone else? That's the brain of the company. Why would you want to do that? So I think the change is going to happen where we are going to implement AI, but it's going to be our AI. It's going to be our SaaS, and it's going to be our proprietary information. And that's what companies like Valorum are helping to do. And this is something from Avishai that, again, Wix.com, we saw what they're facing from a SaaS, and they're trying desperately to change that into an AI-first company. But when you already have a SaaS business that's profitable, that's going well, it's very hard as a humans to backtrack and build it differently. But they have no choice. They're like 75% down already. So the future would look like we have all these other areas that we have today, data, people, business, organization, and society. But all these would need to be merged into a communication language that agents understand, because we want to offload most of the work to them, where ensure that in the key areas, the humans are still in the loop. So, the path to AGI, to summarize, this is what we talked about. Scale versus architecture. Biology is the really big next frontier. We talked about abstraction, how abstraction is not just taking away the tech stack, the operational stack, it's taking the executive stack. It's changing what we think about companies are, what they are right now, how they're going to be built, and what's going to be the future. A lot of people believe that this year as well, we're going to have the first one-person company that's going to reach a $1 billion valuation. And it's possible. Anybody who's worked with Claude Code as an example, which is fantastic, understand that if you have the ability to think horizontally, all those roles could happen with one person. So it is possible, and I think more and more companies are heading to that direction. Now, what that would mean in terms of the economy, and the society, that's still an open question. And lastly, in order to succeed today, we need to get our affairs in order. And the affairs of any organization are its data tables, the data infrastructure, and all that. Without that, we cannot move beyond the first step of having interesting emails, having documents. We need to move beyond that. And for that, we need to do our homework ourselves. That's it. Thank you very much, and thank you, CaixaBank, for hosting us.